Hi everyone, hope you're all well. I've been debating since yesterday whether to say anything about this, but I think I feel like I really would like to because it's more kind of educating people. Um, as some of you may know, I apparently have an inherited eye condition called retinitis pigmentosa, or you might know it as tunnel vision. If you imagine looking down toilet rolls, that's what it can end up being like. And I say apparently because I'm not owning it. It doesn't define who I am as a person. So I see it as something that my body is dealing with. Not saying that's the right way, that's my way. For the last month, I think, I've started using a white cane. I blinged it up a little bit because I wanted to I wanted to give it some of my personality. So I put some I love sparkly things. I do love to sparkle. So it's got beautiful kind of like a lilac-y purpley with rhinestones in on one part and then a tiny little bit at the top. It did have fairy lights on it, but when I was kind of dismantling it, because you kind of sort of take it apart when you're not using it, and I broke the cord. But it looked lovely. It looked lovely with fairy lights. And I've given it a name, Sassy Stick, because I'm channeling my little miss in her sassy pants. But the reason for this video is I was out yesterday, went to a seaside town near where I live, and I was with some friends, and my friend also has RP, and we both had our canes, and we were walking along. We were walking along the harbour, and there were all pubs along there, and there were people. I was aware of people to my right, sitting, and then there were people standing on the pavement to the left. So there was a very, very narrow gap to kind of like walk through. So we're just walking along, sort of getting ready to go up to the steps to come out. And I heard it was a man's voice. I heard one of them say, blind. I didn't hear anything else. Anyway, we got to the top of the steps and my friend said, did you hear what he said? And I said, no. I said, I heard something about blind. She said, what was that? And she said, he'd said, look at these two people pretending that they're blind. And I was like, pretending? Seriously? Why would you want to do that? Why would you pretend to be something that you're not? So we were like really kind of like, should we go back down there? No, that's not. So we were thinking of all these things to kind of say if we had to walk back there again. And I said, oh, look at that person pretending to be intelligent. We're all clever with hindsight, aren't we? Let's be honest. And I said, well, they've had a lot to drink, the sunshine, ignorant, absolutely. Pretending to be funny. I use that term very loosely. Funny in front of their friends. But we were kind of more annoyed with ourselves than the person, because it's like, say what you want sort of thing. We're not blind. So we're more kind of annoyed with ourselves that we didn't have an answer ready. But the point of this video is that you don't have to be blind to have a white stick, a white cane, long cane, whatever you want to call it. The reason I have it is because I kept kind of bumping into people, and like depth perception, I don't sort of see steps very well. And sometimes when, steps are kind of like all the same colour, they all kind of merge in, and I've fallen over a couple of times. And the only way I can kind of describe it, and I will describe this for people who perhaps are unable to see what I'm doing. But if you hold your hands out to the side, like if I look straight ahead, I'm holding my hands out to the side and I can't see them. Now I'm bringing my hands in gradually. I'm looking straight ahead at my stairway there. I'm bringing my hands right in. I only start to see my hands now, which is the width of perhaps my face. I can see my hands there. Now, if I do it this way, because it's 360, I can see. So it's probably my hands, but the way I see my hands from a distance is the width of my head. If you were to do that with 20/20 vision, you could probably see your hands right out here. I can't. So that's the reason I have my stick. So if you see somebody with a white cane, don't assume they're blind. That they may have some vision. They might have what they call low vision, which means perhaps they don't see so well. I don't see so well. in the dark, in dimly lit situations. So, you know, just have some consideration and some kindness. That's all I'm asking, is just be kind. You know, you don't know. So we've all got a story. We've all got a reason why we're like the way we are. So that's kind of what I would like to share. And the other thing as well, if anybody's, or if you know somebody, or if you yourself, if you've just started using a cane, you're going to get people like this. It's up to us to educate them. It's sad that people have to say these stupid comments, but this guy, like I say, too much sunshine, too much drink, you know, whatever. There are far more kind people out there, you know, than people like that, you know. And it's funny, it might have been a couple of weeks ago, I again, same seaside resort, and I was walking along the pavement with Sassy Stick, and there was a couple looking at some postcards, and an elderly lady in a wheelchair, like mobility chair thing. And I was just kind of looking, and I thought, okay, yeah, maybe I can just, you know, step out a little bit, like that. You just kind of think these things in seconds, don't you? And he turned around and he said, "Move out the way, Mum, there's a blind lady coming through." And oh my God. I was like, yeah, okay, I'm okay, thank you. Oh God. But yeah, there's just been stuff like that. But there are, I mean, he didn't mean that in a horrible way. Do you know what I mean? He probably did assume. It's just like this assumption that you have to be blind to have one of these. You don't. You know, so if you see somebody walking with a white cane, they're on their, perhaps they're sitting down on their phone, you know, don't say anything nasty to them. They probably use voiceover. I have the print on my phone is larger. You know, you can have, there's all sorts of assistive technology you can use with the phone. You don't, you know, we can still use phones. You can still do things, you know. All right, I'm not allowed to drive anymore, but if I went to a special off-road driving, I can drive. I can still drive. I'm just not allowed to on a conventional road. So, you know, don't let anybody tell you can't do anything. You can. You just do it differently. Anyway, here endeth the lesson. So yeah, say hello and goodbye to Sassy Stick. All right, take care. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye. Oh, and just to say as well, this isn't a pity post, so please don't put any comments about how you feel sorry for me or anything like that. I don't feel sorry for myself. 2017, yeah, I did. I hit rock bottom. I was emotionally crushed. I thought I'd retire as a hospice nurse because that's always been my passion. But it wasn't to be, and sometimes it's the hand that life deals you. You know, they say man plans and God laughs. It is true. You know, you have to have plans. You've got to make plans, but live in the moment. You know, so please don't put any. You know, just please don't. It's not what this is about. It's really to say, you see somebody with one of these, just don't assume. Please don't assume. Right? Be kind. Take care. Thank you. Bye.